Well, good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. I'm still getting a little setup done. So I thought I'd give you a chance to look at the donor machine that made this possible. You can see some of the parts that I had to pull. And that's the reality sometimes when you've got a machine like Debbie Brown's from Indiana that took a major crash to the floor from about 4 feet or so to get it from this to this requires the generous, helpful spirit of a donor machine like the one right over there. Yeah. All right. Give me a few more minutes. Y'all get to know each other and visit a little bit, and we'll get started shortly. Bum. Gotta love it. Okay, let's see. Protected denim, cotton. Oh yeah, this is perfect. Settle grade. Oh, good morning to Sunny. Good morning to Emma and others that are joining us. Happy Saturday, everybody. Happy Saturday. I'm almost ready. That's a great classic there. Okay, I think we're just about set. I'll show you the sew-offs that I've already done in getting ready for this premiere after getting all the work done on the machine. This is 100% cotton, 100% cotton with a stiffener in it. This is 100% cotton with no stiffener, so just 2 layers and just sewing it as is. And was concentrating obviously on the zigzags there. This also is 100% cotton. I was really feeling color motivated, wasn't I? I went from the red to the purple to kind of the raspberry color. And these 2 here have no stiffener in them. And that's really the true test of the machine to see how it's doing. And then I did some protected full grain leather over here. And then I decided to go after the genuine elk hide. And I didn't do 2 layers like I typically do. I actually did 3. And I might switch out to a leather needle because we're going to be sewing a bunch of leather today and kind of get us ready for that. But I also wanted to show you something that I employed for the first time with this project. Again, because the machine you're looking at, let me turn that down a little bit. Again, because this machine took a tumble to a hard kitchen floor from about 4 feet up, I really was concerned with it taking an impact on this end of the machine, that there might be some sort of fracture in the casting. When they make a machine like this in West Germany, it's all cast. It's basically poured in the molds, and then they pull the molds out, and then you've got the body, the makeup of the machine. You saw some of that in the video that I presented to you all, showing you a tour of the Kilbowie, Scotland factory, where they were doing the hot molding and the pouring the the liquid metal and all that kind of stuff. So when something like this, as heavy as it is, it's about 42 pounds. When it takes a tumble from what is that, 4 times 12, 48 inches or more up, 4 feet, and crashes to the floor on this end of the machine, there really is the risk of fractures. So I employed something called an endoscope. Let me show you kind of what that looks like. Let's go from this screen to, where is it? Yeah, to this screen. So what you can pick up, they're kind of cool. I'll show you the box in case you decide you want to get one yourself. So what you can pick up, it's called an endoscope. It looks like this when it comes in the box. And this particular one is set up so you can either plug it into a laptop or a device like that, or you can also elect to go wireless with it, which is kind of cool. This little box here allows you to connect to their app, and then you can walk around with this sucker and do all kinds of fun things with it, looking at different things. I was goofing around when I first got it. I think I shared that with Paula and Emma, perhaps. And I decided that, okay, so this is the endoscope right here. This is the end of it. You can kind of see that. Sort of see that, not really. And what I decided to do with it for fun, because it also has a light on it as well. Let me see if I can show that to you. Sort of. You can see that. You sort of can see it there. Here, let's do this. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see. But anyway, what I decided to do for fun is I decided to look inside of my mouth with it because it's waterproof. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun to take a peek inside of my mouth and look at my fillings? So this is kind of what my mouth looks like. And you could do the same thing with yours. And they use these things on auto mechanics. They use it, to go inside of engines and check for metal fragments and all that kind of stuff. Or you can goof around like I did initially. I can look inside of my mouth. I can see all kinds. Yeah. But what I used it for on this project, being a little bit less silly, what I used it for on this project was to look inside of Debbie's machine that had taken this big fall. And with this, I can go into all the cracks and crevices and check out things with it. And because it's got a light, you can get into the darkest spaces within the sewing machine. And you can check for that internal damage that I was concerned about. Kind of come from the back over here too. But you get the idea. It's almost the equivalent of a colonoscopy for a sewing machine, isn't it? So it's a neat little device, and it's something that I'm going to be using regularly now in the workshop, so that when I get a machine that has suffered a traumatic injury, like Debbie's machine from Indiana, I'm able to get into spaces and check things that I otherwise could not have checked before. It would have been nearly impossible. It would have been nearly impossible to get in some of these spaces. So, at any rate, see who else we can welcome here. Welcome to Paula as well. I don't think I said hello to Paula yet. And welcome to G. Alexander. Oh, and welcome to Debbie Brown. Debbie Brown is actually our owner. Debbie is watching this from down in Indiana, which is awesome. So again, you know, I always say it would be great. It would be so great to be able to save every single machine that comes to the workshop. But sometimes you've got to take a machine like this and you have to sacrifice it so you can end up with a machine like this. So without further ado, let's go ahead and try some sewing on this. You can see I've already done a fair amount of sewing with this machine, everything from cotton to protected full grain leather to some super thick genuine elk hide. But now we're going to do some stuff live on this live stream. See what you guys think of this machine. It's crazy powerful now, but you can also harness back the power too. And that really is one of the things that Debbie and I talked about, is just how strong the motor was even before I did my work on it with this machine. And this particular machine, Debbie and her dad had this motor as well that was built in Los Angeles. And this was an option as far as putting it on the machine, but I wanted to stick with original PFAFF. So you'll see on the back of the machine, if I kind of extend this over a little bit. Hold on a second, I got to bring this a little bit closer. You can hopefully see on the back of the machine, we have an original PFAFF motor mounted, 1.3 amps. And now that it's been serviced, it just has a huge amount of power. Added a new belt as well, which the machine really needed. And let's see how she sews. Let's see how she sews. Yeah. All right. And you'll notice something else that I've added just as a precaution, because the machine is so strong. I added these little non-skid pads underneath the various pedestal feet of the machine. And then I have it raised up because some of the mechanics have to pivot when the machine is operating. And just to make sure they don't snag up on this little carpet here I've got the machine on a nice flat, clear surface. And then I've got these little rubber pads. These are basically jar openers. You can buy them all over the place. They sometimes come in the form of placemats as well, but it's a real sticky rubber type thing. Cut it up. You can put it underneath the pedestal feet if the machine is not going to be put immediately into a table or a base. And then the machine has a lot more stability. It's not going to be trying to skip across when you're powering it up and stuff. So a little bit of precaution can go a long way when you're dealing with a strong German machine like this. Let's see if I can just fire this up real quick. I'll get this in place to begin with. And of course, I've got some polka music on in the background. I couldn't help myself, you know. Yeah, you get the idea. And this motor sounds a little bit different when it's running because it has a turbine design on the inside with a fan assembly. And then this output shaft on the motor actually moves in and out just slightly as you power the motor up. And that's to give that that flux a little bit as that motor engages the balance wheel so you don't get slippage. It's really actually a design feature of the motor, which is a real smart design. And then obviously we added new wiring as well. You can see some of that wiring here, and then wiring coming off of the motor as well. This project was really complete and total when it came to the needs of the machine. Everything from mechanical restoration and repair where the parts were damaged. And these again were some of the parts that we ended up swapping out between the two machines. And then electrical, and then also quite a few adjustments too. When a machine falls like that from that height, it's going to need a little bit more TLC. All right, let me slide this over a little bit. Oh, and let me tell you the setup on this machine today. We've got a size 90-14 universal needle. I do not have a leather needle in. I probably should have gone with a leather needle because we're going to be sewing a fair amount of leather today. But I thought I would start with the universal. If we have to swap it out, if it gets a barb on it or gets dulled out a little bit because of all the sewing already that I've done on it off camera, then we can always move into another type needle. We'll just swap it out. So that's the setup. We've got a 9014 universal needle. We've got some of that basic Coates and Clark dual duty thread on top. You can kind of see that in the shot as well. Nothing fancy. And when you're setting this machine up, the flat side of the needle is going to go to the rear. And then when you're setting the bobbin up, and this is going to have almost like a class 15 bobbin, but it's a little bit different. When you're setting up the bobbin and you put it into this bobbin case, I'll actually take it out and show you again. When you set it up, you're going to want to make sure, hold on a second. You're going to make sure that when you slide it in, the thread's coming over the top. You can kind of hold the bobbin in your right hand like this. Go ahead and slide it in and then bring that through the slat. You can see that little slat on top right there, I think. And then make sure you get it all the way underneath that tension band over here. You kind of hear it snap into place. And as this is turning, if you can imagine it being mounted into the machine like this, it's going to be turning counterclockwise. So if you forget, well, did Scott have the bobbin case in his left hand or his right hand? Don't worry about it. Just put the bobbin in there, thread it up, and when you pull it, if it turns counterclockwise, then you're good to go. So just the basic setup of this machine, and we're ready to give it a go. And I thought I would launch on this this genuine elk hide. We're going to go ahead and lay down a zigzag on it first. And one of the things that I want to show Debbie and other folks that have this model 130, and again, does anyone remember that the year that PFAFF introduced the Model 30, that was really their premier machine that offered zigzag for the first time? And obviously later on this 130-6, they added what some people call a coffee grinder on the back, which is really an embroidery kit. And then you were able to do a ton of more stitches with this original Model 130 that came out. Does anyone remember the year that this model was first introduced by PFAFF? Well, you guys are guessing at that or Googling it or whatever. We'll go ahead and buzz off on this first sew off, and I'm going to go ahead and do a zigzag on it. Oh, I'll show you one other thing real quick. We've talked about on the Husqvarnas that have that little, they have like a little tab on the bottom of their upper tension. The Husqvarna machines, like the green machines. And when we move that tab, it retards the range of motion for the take-up spring on the upper tension unit. And that's because when we change between different types of materials, or if we use more delicate threads, we sometimes want to reduce how far this take-up spring, and the take-up spring is this right here that I'm talking about. See if I can move it gently without knocking it out of alignment or something. So this little take-up spring that moves up and down in the sewing process. If you're dealing with heavier materials, you want that take-up spring to be able to move more fully, so it's pulling that thread up with greater force to define that lock stitch. And when you want that, you move this little tab right here. You can see this little tab right here that I'm adjusting. Lighter materials, you're up in this range, all the way at, if you think of that as a clock, it's probably like the 3 o'clock position. And as you go to heavier materials or more layers, you slowly and gradually move this down to a point where you can get all the way down to about the 6 o'clock position right there. And that's going to give you the greatest range of motion for that take-up spring, so you can make sure that you get a nicely defined lock stitch as you're going through heavier layers or denser leather like this elk hide. So I'm going to leave it right about in this range over here. And let's try this a zigzag on this genuine elk hide. And Emma wrote 1932, and she is absolutely correct. 1932 is the year that the PFAFF 130, the class 130, was first introduced with its amazing zigzag function. And everybody was like, whoa, it's amazing. And then they eventually added that embroidery kit for the back of these 130-6 models, and everybody was even like, "Wow, can it get any better?" And PFAFF has always been progressive, right? Always been progressive as far as what they do with machines. So, all right, let me bump the music way down, although it's really quite quiet right now. And let's go ahead and buzz down this genuine elk hide. And again, I'm going to be laying down a zigzag on it. All right, here we go. Perfect ending to the music right there. Slow it way down and speed it up. This is a fun polka song. I got to bump this one up. Well, this is a lovely, lovely zigzag stitch. Let me show it to you. Actually, you know what? Let me get my thread holder, my sew-off holder. Let me just set it up, and that way I don't have to kind of hold it. And look at that top edge as far as the thickness of this leather that we just went through. Beautiful stitching. See that thickness? And we're going to be going through a lot thicker than this during this premiere. If I turn it over, here's our lock stitch. And again, the lock stitch would not be quite as good looking as it is with greater clarity. And it doesn't have any wavering to it because we made that adjustment right here. And it gave us that fuller motion swing as far as that take-up spring. So a beautiful first stitch off on Debbie Brown's 130-6 that arrived at the workshop with so many challenges. But you know what? This is like a hospital, right? I love to be able to put our magic to work. So let's go ahead and take it up to 2 layers now. This is what we're going to be sewing next. And again, we're not using a leather needle. We don't have the benefit of a leather needle right now. We've got a universal needle that Schmetz designs as a needle that should be able to handle a wide field of different materials. But on any level, a sew-off like this with these 2 thick layers of elk hide, and elk hide, again, is chemically processed, so it galvanizes that surface. It makes this leather incredibly difficult to get through. And they do that intentionally, just like protected full grain leather, because they want this to have greater durability and they want it to be able to stand up against a lot of wear. Hold on. Lights. Holy mackerel. That was kind of a scary song. So now we're going to step it up to 2 layers on this machine. No hand start. We're just going to launch into it. Matter of fact, I'll back the camera up a little bit So you can kind of see across the machine. Yeah, like that. And again, most people would not attempt a sew off like this with a machine like this, even though it's designed for heavy duty. And they certainly wouldn't be doing it with a non-leather needle, but you know what? It's how we roll, right? The other thing I'll do real quick is I will, since we're going through a lot more leather now, I'm going to go ahead and bump up our presser foot pressure. That's our adjustment right up here. So I'm going to give it about probably a good 1.5 turns. Give us a little bit more pressure. I'll have to remember to adjust this back when we move into the cottons. Otherwise, we'll probably get some bunching. It'll be pushing down too hard at that point. Also, real quick, you know what? Since we're facing the machine, let me cover this as well. The threading of the machine is really simple. We come off the top, we go underneath this thread guide. We then go over the top of this tensioner right here. We then come down through the discs, the take-up discs, the tension discs. Ah! And whenever you thread a machine, make sure that take-up arm in the back, this little lever right here, make sure that this lever is in the up position whenever you are threading a machine, so that there's no tension on these discs up here. You draw it through the discs, and then you kind of come around that take-up spring right there. We kind of come around that. There we go. Now it's focused. We kind of bring the thread between the goalposts so that there's tension on the take-up spring. Then we come underneath this thread guide right here. We come behind this thread guide right there. Then we're going to come up to the take-up arm. Then there's another thread guide right here on the faceplate. You can see that. Another thread guide down here just above the needle. I think you can see that. And then finally, we thread this needle from front to back. From front to back. So that's the basic threading of the machine. It's really quite easy, isn't it? Really quite easy. And then for winding a bobbin, the way I do it at least, and the book may not agree, but the way I wind a bobbin on a machine like this, there we go. I put my spool of thread up here. This same tensioner right here that was snapped off amid the other damage that was done to the machine when it fell, I bring the thread from here to here across the machine through this tensioner right here, and then finally up to the bobbin. So I wind it similar to other machines that don't have a spool pin right here. Come off the top here, over to here, and then up to here. And then to engage the bobbin winder, it's quite easy. You just push it down like so. And then when it's done winding, it'll usually disengage itself. Otherwise, you can just push right there and it pops back up. And then, of course, you disengage the clutch as well when you're winding a bobbin. And that's kind of what I did when we were just revving the machine up to show you the power of the machine, is I disengaged the clutch. So all we were doing was spinning the balance wheel. But incredibly easy machine once you get, kind of the lay of the land of it, and you just kind of settle into it and just enjoy it. Don't be intimidated by any machine. I've shown you guys some very complicated machines, relatively complicated. And once you kind of watch it and see it, it's kind of like Paula Noella said, she's watched different videos of different machines, like the one we did of the Czech Republic machine. And she was like, it was initially a little bit intimidating, especially, with the bobbin setup on that machine and everything. But once you see it and you kind of settle into it, it's like any machine. You just figured it out and it becomes second nature, right? Yeah. Okay. So let's jump into what is probably a little bit of a crazy sew off, but we're going to do it anyway. Let's see. Deciding what kind of stitch I'm going to lay down. I think we'll lay a straight stitch and we'll lay down a zigzag next to it. Just going to check my tensions. And whenever you're adjusting upper tension like this, make sure that that presser foot lever right here that I'm touching, make sure it's in the down position. And the reason I say that is when you're adjusting your tension up or down on the upper tension, you don't want to have those discs being pushed out against this knob that you're trying to adjust. If you have that presser foot lever in the down position, this turns very, very nicely and very freely, and there's no resistance. So that way you're not fighting against the natural tension that occurs when you raise that presser foot lever. Hopefully that makes sense. I think it does. All right. So let's do a straight stitch first of all, and then we'll lay down a zigzag next to it. And again, what we're sewing through again is genuine elk hide. If you look from the side, as I kind of pinch it together, we've got about 12 to 14 ounces of leather here. 12 to 14 ounces. And again, no leather needle. No leather needle. All right, let's go. Here we go. Yes, I'm ready. Push on the foot controller, Mr. Bean. Push. Ah! Slow down, slow down, slow down. That was kind of fun. Beautiful stitching. I can see I still don't have enough presser foot pressure though, because the stitches are a little bit on the stubby side. They're a little bit on the stubby side. No skip stitches, amazingly, using a non-leather needle to go through that much leather. But we could even go a little bit higher in that presser foot pressure when we're going through something this thick and with that density of leather. And we'll lay down a zigzag next to it next, and then we'll look at these stitches all together at the same time. Okay, so I'm going to put that right there. I'm going to raise our presser foot pressure a little bit higher. I'm kind of turning that adjuster on top. There we go. We'll give this a go now. And when you want to do a zigzag on the machine, it's real simple. Right now we're set on 5 on stitch length over here. Where am I? There I am. We're set on 5. I'm going to bring it down to probably about between 4 and 3, about 3.5. And then I'm going to take my stitch width adjuster right here, and I'm going to move us right over to about a 3. So we're not going to be at max. We're going to be 3 here and just right around 3, about 3.5 on the stitch length. So stitch length again, stitch width. And then if you want to change needle position, that's what this control is right here. This control right here, let me see if I can set the camera down. So if we want to adjust needle position, you can push this in and then rotate it down. If you want a far right needle position, you can see our needle is moved all the way to the right now. Or if you want a far left needle position, you push this in and rotate it all the way up. And now you can see we have a far left needle position. Or you can push it in again and move it right around to the mid-range. And then we've got a nice center needle position. This is just going to help you set boundaries as far as how far you want that stitch width control to be able to go. This will retard that back. And then you can also set your stitch length if you're concerned about it moving by just turning this to tighten it in. And there's a lot of other machines that have this feature as well to kind of lock it into place. And that's the basic lay of the land right there. It's, like I said, it's not a horribly complicated, tricky machine to work with. All right. Look at that. Look at that leather just going kind of curling up. Ah! All right, let's lay down a zigzag next to this. And again, we're going through about 12 to 14 ounces of genuine elk hide without a hand start. I'm just going to get that take-up arm all the way to the highest position. So we're on that downstroke. And I'm really going to try to hold the speed back this time. So you can see, well, the motor came fairly strong, but after I got done servicing it and going through and doing a number of changes to it and some wire upgrades as well, it's got grit that's just off the charts now. I think Debbie told me she's working with some sort of a console right now, which is a light industrial machine. This is going to feel like a light industrial machine when she gets it back in Indiana because of the power upgrade that I've given it. So let's lay down a zigzag on these 2 layers of genuine elk hide now. I'm going to turn the music down, really listen to this machine run. I'm going to try to run it real slow. But again, because the foot controller and the motor on this PFAFF setup do not have a capacitor or any way to retard that speed, you kind of start a little bit fast and you have to kind of back it off a little bit. So let's jump into this. Here we go. So I think you could see I kind of launched into it. We kind of bolted a little bit, and then I pulled back on the reins, and I said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa! Slow down, buddy, slow down." So you can do that. The only caution when you got a non-electronic foot controller, and the foot controller that Debbie sent with this machine is the same one that I went through and serviced. It must be set up to go in a table. As you kind of look at it, it has no bottom on it right now. And that's generally because it's going to be mounted in a table and set up with a knee controller. So in lieu of that, there's usually a back on here. And again, it would seem obvious to most of us, but I actually got a note one time from someone in Holland that said that they watched me doing a premiere, and I was talking about the wiring of the foot controller and that, and they rewired their foot controller. They had the back off, and I don't know why they did this. I have no idea, but they made contact with these 2 leads at the same time, and they got shocked. And they said, "I didn't know you could get shocked by a foot controller." You absolutely can. So, be real careful when you're working with a foot controller, especially if it doesn't have a back on it. This is an open electrical lead right here. Let me show you. Whoops. As I'm dropping everything. And I think what this person had said from Holland is they thought it was only active when you were pushing down on the foot controller, but that's not the case. You can see we've got electricity. This is our hot over here. This is our neutral on this side. So just be mindful of that. Whenever you're working with electricity, you've got to be careful, right? But foot controllers are not a safe thing to be handling if the machine is plugged in, because again, the foot controller is your gateway to powering up the motor. So the electricity flows through here first, and then it heads into supply that motor. So the shock you get off of this would probably be even a little bit greater because it's that initial gateway than the motor itself if you were touching the leads coming off of the motor. So just be careful. Be careful out there. Yeah, be careful. All right. So let's take a look at this stitching now and see what we think. And again, when you're dealing with this much leather, you got to be mindful of so many different things. You've got to be mindful of where is my presser foot pressure? Is my needle up to the task? And the challenge always with a needle, and I can see our upper tension needed to go up a little bit as well. Let me bend this. So what I was starting to say is you got to be mindful of making adjustments on upper tension. You might have to make adjustments on that take-up spring and on this PFAFF 130-6, moving it down to that lower position like I have it right now. Presser foot pressure adjustments as well. And, again, just setting yourself up for success. And when you're doing one-offs like this during a live stream, sometimes you'll nail it exactly. And I think we did a really good job. But sometimes you'll see that there's opportunity for improvement. And we've got that as well. So let's go across and look at these, the zigzag on top, the straight stitch on the bottom. So some really good stitching, but again, as I look at it, our presser foot pressure for a level of sewing like this was a little bit underrated. And that's determined by the fullness of that straight stitch on the bottom. You'll see some that are a little bit longer, a little bit stubbier, and that's a feed factor. All in all, really, really quite good for this much leather using a non-leather needle. But we could make it better. And that's one of our principles in the workshop and also in the classroom is we can always make things better, right? So all in all, a very good looking top stitch under the circumstances. We could even improve it more by using a higher grade thread and also by using an appropriate needle that's designed specifically for very dense, very heavy leather like this elk hide. So we would be going with a leather needle and we would probably go with a little bit heavier thread. And then what we would do is we would also upgrade our needle from a size 9014 to a size 116. 100/16 is what I mean to say. 100/16. So here's our lock stitch. Now I spun this around. You're going to notice that all in all, our lock stitching looks really good, especially on the zigzag. But again, our upper tension was just a little bit deficient because you'll notice that some of the straight stitching that we did on the bottom doesn't have the level of clarity that we would want ideally. It's it's provisional page 34, but it could be better. I'll kind of go across and show you what I mean. Once the camera says, I'm going to focus now. There we go. And where you see a little bit of the tipping of the stitch as you're looking at that straight stitch row on the bottom, that's an upper tension issue. That's an upper tension issue where it wasn't able to pull that thread back up through those layers with enough force to make that stitch nice and straight and nice and tight. It's a very minimal tip, but there's still a slight tip in that straight stitch on the bottom row. And that's easy enough to solve by bumping that upper tension up a little bit higher. And the tricky thing a little bit on this machine with the upper tension is this is one of those dials that doesn't have stop boundaries. In other words, on most upper tensions, you're going to have a range of somewhere between 1 and say 5, or maybe 1 and 9, depending on the model. On this particular tension unit, you can turn it and turn it and turn it and turn it and turn it to increase more and more pressure on that spring that presses against that release pin to increase the tension on these discs. But it really is, it's as you change materials, it becomes a little bit of a guessing game because you really don't know when, because right now we're somewhere between, right now we're right about on 5, it looks like. 4's over there. Wait, yeah, 6 is over here, 5 is there, 4 is over here. And we don't know how many turns that this upper tension has received because I'm not going to remember that necessarily as I change between materials. If I see that that lock stitch is too defined, then I'll back this off and go counterclockwise. If it's underserved like it was on this elk hide, where we could make a little bit more of a pull up on that lock stitch, then we go ahead and turn it clockwise to increase it. But again, because the range is constant and you can go past, almost like opening up a locker combination, you can go past the number 5 2 3 4 times as you're initially setting the machine up to get that right tension balance between the bobbin case and the upper tension. It becomes a little bit of a guessing game. So as you become more and more familiar with the machine, as you spend more time with it, it'll become a little bit easier to say, oh yeah, I'm going to adjust this back 1.5 turns in order to get that right tension for that cotton material I'm going to sew next. But that's again why we change material types when we're doing premieres like this, because I want you guys to be able to see that there's no problem that we encounter that can't be overcome, usually by some simple adjustments, whether we're sewing elk hide like this or whether we're sewing cotton. And cotton is what we're going to sew next. So let's throw this to the back and we'll move into that next sew off. Oh, hello to Bry Guy. I know I've said hello to Sunny and Paula and Emma already. And then welcome to totally one. It looks like totally one sin. Totally one sin. So that's a very interesting screen name, isn't it? And I don't think I've seen that screen name before. So I'm sure some of the moderators are already reaching out to this person, whoever they are, wherever they're from, and making them feel welcome. And hopefully they feel comfortable enough to share where they're located. We always love to discover new folks in new parts of the country, new parts of the world, and be able to make them feel welcome to the Cow Country family. All right, let's do this next one now. Let's go into some cotton material. And again, we've got the machine calibrated and adjusted right now for sewing crazy leather. So we're going to have to make a couple of quick adjustments so we can hopefully get ourselves set for success. Number one, we need to back off this presser foot pressure now. I'm going to go probably a good 3 or 4 turns. You just kind of raise it a little bit. You can feel how much pressure is on there. That's still pretty heavy for cotton. There we go. That's a little bit more in the range, I think. We might get a little bit of bunching on the back of the material, but that feels a lot better than it was. Okay, excellent. Then we have to consider the upper tension, which I'm going to leave this alone for right now until we can see what happens with the sew off. But I am going to adjust this take-up spring adjustment right here, this little lever thing that you can slide, and I'm going to bring it up to right about this range right there. We don't want to go too far because we might get a loosey-goosey lock stitch because that take-up spring will be retarded so far it's not able to pull that knot and make that stitch nice and tight. That's kind of what this take-up spring does, is going back and forth during the sewing process, is it's allowing that thread to advance, and it's also pulling up as it swings back up to make that lock stitch nice and properly aligned, etc. So we're not going to move this all the way up like we sometimes might for like silks and satins. We'll leave it about right there. So okay. What should we do first? Let's go ahead and do a zigzag maybe, huh? We'll do a zigzag first. And then we'll move into a couple of straight stitch lines after that. And what we're sewing on right now is just 2 very, very thin layers. You can kind of see that. 2 super thin layers of 100% cotton. So we're not working with a lot of stability here as far as the material. We don't have any stabilizer in there like I'll sometimes use. I'll sometimes slide some of this in to give it a little bit better stability when we're using decorative or ornamental stitching. But we're just going to go for it here. Hopefully I backed off that presser foot pressure enough and we get some nice even feed. So we'll start with a zigzag and then we'll kind of go through a couple zigzag formations. And we'll move into some straight stitching. All right, blah, 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 blah. Here we go. And I'll try to hold that speed back as best as I can. But this is a very happy German machine now. Very happy. Let me back that up just a little bit more. And on these PFAFF 30s, because of the feed design and the hook system, this comes with a rotary hook system. It tends to really pull on that thread when you first launch. So what I sometimes do, so I don't get a little knot mess at the beginning of that stitch line on the lock stitch side, is I'll hold onto those threads just temporarily when it's initially pulling that thread, and then we get a nice finished stitch line on the back of there as well, if that makes sense. All right, here we go. Boom, bum, bum. I wanted to wait for the end of the music. Here we go. I'm holding onto the thread and I'm gassing it. I'm going, ah, here we go. All right, we'll do a couple of stitch lines and we'll look at all of these stitches together afterwards. That's the way I had it. I lose track. I should probably mark it with top and bottom or something. All right, we're going to do our next stitch row now, and then we'll look at all these stitches together. So all I'm going to do is just adjust this zigzag down a little bit. Right now, I'm right up on 4, which is the max. Just going to bring it down to about 3. Bring this down a little bit over here. We weren't even on the max stitch length. You can see our max would have been all the way up there. We were right about at 4.5. So now I'm going to bring this down to about 3, real close to 3. There we go. So we're kind of mirroring and matching. We're doing a 3 and a 3 between those two. Let's take a look at this one. All right, let me see if I can manage the speed a little bit better this time. I didn't do so well the last time. Here we go. Yeah, that was a big improvement there. And again, you can harness the speed with the type of foot controller that I showed you that Debbie sent with this machine or brought with this machine. But you just have to be aware that when it's a carbon-based ceramic type foot controller and you're operating the machine for an extended period of time at slow speeds, it will cause that foot controller to heat up. It'll cause it to get warm and maybe even a little bit on the hot side because that electricity is being held back. It's again, the foot controller is the gateway. And as you're barely pushing that foot controller down, all of that electricity is backing up into that foot controller, and it's going to cause it to start to get warm real quick. So just be aware of that. If you're sewing and you don't have an electronic foot controller, monitor that foot controller. So if it starts to get hot, you can let it cool off a little bit, or you can move to a different type of sewing where you're going to be sewing more at a regular pace. You're not going to be retarding that speed so much using the foot controller. And again, because these 130s don't come with a slow gear like the Husqvarnas, you don't have that option of using a slow gear on it. You're using what you have as far as a resource. So now we're going to bring this down to a 2. Excuse me. Bring that down to right about a 2 on the stitch width. I'm waiting for the camera to decide that it's going to focus. Come on, you silly camera. There we go. So that's set on 2. We're going to bring this one down to about 2, the stitch length. So we got pretty much a mirror and match. We've got 2 and 2. Let's see what this zigzag looks like when we bring it down to this range. And again, I'll do my best to regulate the speed down. Regulate the speed down. Here we go. I mean, this, if I hit that gas, we would be blowing this material through in about a microsecond. So I'm trying to really keep that speed down so you can see the machine and listen to the machine operating. It's just such a silky smooth, happy German machine now. All right, let me bring that all the way to the back. All right, let's go even a little bit smaller than this. Bring that back into position again. All right, let's see where we're going to go now. Let's go all the way down to 1. So we're going to take our stitch width, we're going to take it all the way down to 1. And then we're going to take our stitch length over here down to about 1. There we go. So now we have a match. We've got a 1 and a 1. I always try to balance them a little bit when I'm doing zigzags. It keeps the stitch presentation a little bit more in formation. It looks like it's finished. It looks like it's complete. It doesn't look like it's oblong or odd shaped or something like that. All right, let's try this last zigzag. So we kind of, again, we went with a 4x4, a 3x3, a 2x2, and now we're going to be doing a 1x1. So you can see, even with a basic zigzag sewing machine, while this 130-6 doesn't have that embroidery kit, you can goof around with stitch length and stitch width and get totally different stitch patterns from this machine. Totally different stitch patterns. Oh, welcome to Jonathan too. Welcome to Jonathan, and yeah. It's fun to have new folks in our family, isn't it? It's fun to have new folks. All right, let's do this 1x1 now. And again, I'll do my best to really keep that speed down, really keep it harnessed back. All right, here we go. Slow it way down. There we go. Isn't that a fun stitch? Hopefully you can see that in the shot. I just love the transition as we go through these different adjustments on the machine, basic adjustments. I mean, all we're doing is stepping down stitch width and stitch length proportionally. And we start with something like this, and then we go to here, and then we go to here, and now we finally are ending right over here. And it just shows you how spectacular a straight stitch zigzagging machine can be. And that's why it was such a big deal in 1932 when this 130 class was first introduced with that zigzag feature. It just opened up a brand new world to the sewists in the 1930s that they really didn't have access to before. All right, let's do a couple of straight stitch lines next to this now. I think that's the way I have it orientated. All right, we'll do a couple of straight stitches now, and we're almost on the stitch width at a point where we're already really close to almost doing a straight stitch. Let's take it a little bit further. We'll bring it all the way down to 0 on the stitch width. And I'm kind of looking over my shoulder. If the camera's doing something weird, it's because I'm looking over my shoulder at the laptop to see if I'm aiming the camera correctly. And then we're going to bring this stitch length up to right around 4. We won't go absolutely max. We'll go right around to 4-ish. Yeah. All right, give this a go. Okay, we'll do this first stitch row, and we'll see when you go from a needle swing pattern to a straight stitch, you might have to do a little tweaking on tension depending on the material you're sewing on. So we'll see what kind of result we get and see whether or not we're going to make any adjustments. All right, here we go. And again, I'll try to tame it down. Now here we are getting some bunching on this straight stitch. Isn't that interesting? Hold on a second. It's just interesting when all you do is change a stitch pattern. Oops. I just bumped the foot controller. All you do is make a simple adjustment, and all of a sudden it can do something very wonky. All right, let me get that fixed here. So what I can tell straight away is we're trying to do this straight stitch line. I'm going to have to back off that presser foot pressure even a little bit more than we're at right now. I'll kind of start where our stitch line started, unless I can pull this out and we'll kind of start fresh, but I doubt it. Yeah, we'll just do another stitch row with it. Okay, let's give this a go again. Start right about there, and I'm going to back off that presser foot pressure even a little bit more. We're pretty light, but it started to bunch a little bit as we were trying to feed it. So we'll see how it does this time. I'll back it off a little bit more. Boy, that helped a lot. I gave it about another half turn or so, and all of a sudden that material feed was considerably happier than it was before. We've got kind of a broken stitch line there, but you can get the idea as we look at it. But I can see that our upper tension is not going to be high enough to manage this stitch presentation. I'm going to stitch the row again and bump up our upper tension a little bit to get more of a balanced stitch. Press foot lever down. We'll bump that up just a little bit higher. Okay, I think I have it pointing the right way. Let's see. All right, let's give this a go. Now, notice how well it's feeding now. All we did is make that simple presser foot pressure adjustment. We're not getting the bunch in. It's not puckering up. It's feeding through very, very nicely. And that's kind of the fine tuning you have to do sometimes as you're working with the sewing machine and you're changing from one material to another. And that stitch balance is looking much better too. I bumped up that upper tension just slightly. Again, we don't have much substance to work with here. We don't have much substance. We're dealing with two super thin layers of 100% cotton. So there's no stabilizer. There's not it just makes it a little bit more challenging, which is okay. Yeah, that looks a lot better. All right, let me set this up and we'll take a look at oh, you know what? Before I do that, let me do one more stitch row, and we will just verify it. I like to verify things, make sure it's good to go. I'm also going to make it just a wee bit longer than it was, just a wee bit longer. All right, let's take a look at this one, see what we think. Much better, much better. And see, that's the process, isn't it? You sometimes go through a couple of stitch rows as you're working with this material. And again, we've gone from sewing 14 ounces of genuine elk hide to, well, actually, we started with lighter elk hide and we went to thicker elk hide, and now we're on cotton. So you have to tweak things a little bit, don't you? The machine is not going to just automatically adjust. Even the newer machines that supposedly can auto adjust, they're not going to be able to figure this out just by the computer telling it, oh, okay, you're going from a heavy leather now to cotton, and you got to do this. It's got to be a process of staging it. So, all right, so a little bit of a messiness on some of these rows, but we'll just kind of take a look at it and see what we think. I can see our balance is close, but it's not spot on. Okay, so again, 2 layers of 100% cotton. Had to think about that. Started out with the different zigzag rows. We went down to really quite tiny, one by one. We went through the different phases of the straight stitching. Let's just take a look at them, see what we think. So all in all, some good looking stitching. Again, you're never going to get the clarity of stitch when you're sewing something as lightweight, as feather lightweight as this, these 2 little thin layers of cotton with no stabilizer in between or no quilt batting in between. If you're doing some sort of quilt blocking work, when you're just sewing with the 2 light pieces of cotton, it really presses that machine to be able to manage that stitch integrity and that stitch presentation through a very difficult process. And Debbie's machine handled this very, very nicely. When you think about the different steps that we've taken the machine through to transition from sewing super heavy duty elk hide, 14 ounces of leather, to sewing this feather light 100% cotton, the machine has managed it beautifully. It managed it better than I managed it, probably. And that's the truth of the machines, is when I get done with them, they really do, they give me a lot of grace in generating some beautiful stitches in spite of my shortfalls sometimes and not making the right adjustments. There we go. That's a little bit easier. And you can see the progress that we took through, especially as we hit that straight stitch. We started a little bit awkward right here. We are some feed factors. We adjusted the presser foot pressure. We got better feed here, but we still had a little bit of an offset on that tension balance between upper and lower tension. And then finally we did that last stitch row and we nailed it with a page 34 stitch line. Let's turn it over and look at that lock stitch. Lock stitch is always trickier to do, isn't it? It's always going to be tricky to do, but I think that Debbie's 130-6 also managed this sew off beautifully, as we had to make a number of adjustments to accommodate this super lightweight cotton compared to the leather that we had done before. And again, we can always make things better, can't we? We can always make things better. Like on this last stitch row, while it's provisional page 34, we can make it better by even increasing that upper tension just a little bit more to get even better stitch definition on that lock stitch. But again, it varies as you go through different lengths, doesn't it? Here we were a little bit on the shorter side, and that balance on the second row up looks spot on. And then as we lengthen that stitch out, it's the same thing when we incorporate needle swing. The wider that zigzag is, the more upper tension we need pulling up to keep those stitches properly aligned and to keep them nice and tight. And here we could have gone a little bit higher up on that upper tension, but we didn't. And that's okay, because we know what to do to continue to improve our stitch product. Yeah. Some good looking stitches though. I'm really liking that. All right, so let's throw this cotton to the back. Kind of had a chance to run through the cotton phases a little bit. Let's see what else we want to sew on this machine. See what else we want to sew. And I'm gonna get a quick drink of water real quick. Let's see. Yeah, that would be a fun one to do. Let's see. I think what Debbie sent with this machine when she brought it from Indiana is she had denim underneath there. Let's do some denim sewing too. Let's see, what do we have? 2 layers. Fold it in half and get us up to 4 layers. What do you guys think? Should we do a zigzag and a straight stitch on this with 4 layers, which is what we have right now, or should I fold it one more time and take us up to what would that be? Would that be 8 layers? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, that would take us up to 8 layers. So what do you guys think? Should we do 6 layers or 8 layers of denim? Again, this is not that stretchy denim. This is more traditional denim. It's a heavy grade denim. So 6 or 8 layers. I'm at 6 right now. What do you guys think? So I'm getting a vote from Emma to go with 8, and Gary is saying go with 4, man. Go with 4. So 4 layers. Let's see. 2. This would be our 4 layers right here. Holy mackerel, we're back to the jamming music again. So here's what I'll do to accommodate Gary and Emma is I will start with 4 layers, and then if I have to tear it apart, to get the stitching out, and then we'll do 8 layers after that. We'll do 4 and 8. Yeah, let's do that. So we got 4 layers of denim we're starting with. I'm going to bump up that presser foot pressure again. Again, we've just gone from cotton in the back, that pinkish raspberry colored cotton. Now we're going to denim, so we're going to have to bump up this presser foot pressure just a little bit again. And I've had sewists that have been sewing for decades that never understood the power of the presser foot adjuster and what impact that has on the quality of stitching, the feed factor, and everything else. And it's an extra step, isn't it? But it really sets us up for the greatest amount of success. So that's the good stuff. All right. So we will do Gary's stitch first. Let's go ahead and do a zigzag. We'll do a 4x4 zigzag. And then we'll go to 8 layers to accommodate Emma's request. All right, let's check this out. So this again is 4 layers of heavy grade denim, 4 layers. And we're laying down a 4x4 zigzag. If you want to try this on your PFAFF 130-6, you can do exactly the same sew off, exactly the same. All right, here we go. And the other thing I want to look at real quick that I didn't take into account is our take-up spring lever. Right now we're setting kind of the mid-range. This again would be in the light range way up here. But we're going to be sewing 4 layers of denim, and then we're going to try 8 layers of denim with a quickly tiring needle. So we're going to move this now towards the bottom to accommodate for this heavier sew off. And again, the further you move this down, the more range of motion you're going to get on that take-up spring to allow a better definition on that lock stitch. That's really what we're making the main adjustment for right there. I think that's pretty good. We'll give that a try, see what we think. All right, in silence in the workshop, we'll be able to listen to Debbie's machine running. This again, 4 layers of denim. Let's see how we do. Here we go. And the little humming you hear for a brief moment at the launch is as I'm very slowly trying to depress that presser foot, that foot controller, excuse me, as I'm trying to push that foot controller down very, very slowly so we don't get a burst of energy. Again, that's part of the reason that the Swedish added capacitors and resistors to their foot controllers and also added capacitors to their motors. Is what it allows is it allows more of an even flow at launch with that electricity surging through the foot controller and going into that motor. The PFAFF isn't set up that way, at least on this model. So you have to kind of regulate it yourself a little bit. All right, so let's see here. I might be able to do this. Let me do a stitch row of straight stitching next to this for Gary, and then we'll fold it over kind of in the middle so we've got those 8 layers, and we'll duplicate the same, excuse me, we'll duplicate the same sew off. And I talked about getting a drink of water, but I never did. And some of you might be wondering, with the damage that this 130-6 from Indiana, this one right here, with the damage that it sustained in falling about 4 feet to a hard floor, is this the worst repair restoration that you've had to do? I would probably say no. Even though we had to do a number of parts replacements, you can kind of see that again. And thank goodness again for being able to acquire this 130-6 as a donor machine, because I would not have been able to get this machine up and running again without this machine being sacrificed. And that's just the nature, isn't it? Since they don't make these parts anymore. But it's probably not the worst repair restoration that I've had, but it's definitely up there in the top 5. All right, which way am I going with this? I think I'm going this way. Let's get that back into position again. We'll lay down another zigzag next to it. Or no, excuse me, a straight stitch. That's what I wanted to do. Let's lay down a straight stitch next to that. So I got to take our stitch width all the way down to 0. And then our stitch length, yeah, we're probably about right. We can be right around 3 or 4 in that range, somewhere like right there. Yeah, let's give this a go. Again, we're doing 4 layers of heavy grade denim. And then what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to fold this over like sort of like that with these other layers too, as best as I'm able. And we'll see if we can do those 8 layers that Emma wanted to see. 8 layers of denim, that's a pretty big deal, you guys. If you've never done it on one of your machines, vintage or otherwise, that's a pretty tough sew off. That's like doing several ounces of a heavy grade leather. That's pretty tough. But it's really not tough for this machine. I mean, truthfully. This is a beast, but a beautiful beast. All right, let's lay down this straight stitching. I'm going to move that over even a little bit more so I've got more ability to fold it over. There we go. Get that nice and tight next to that zigzag. All right, here we go. Straight stitching. I think we're set right around 3.5. I thought we were set on 4. I'm going to adjust it up a little bit. Take up arm is up. Let's go. Here we go. Yeah, we're right around 3.5, and that's a little bit tinier than I wanted to do it, but that's okay. You see how our lock stitch did. Yeah, the lock stitch all in all did really well. Again, because of some of the setup that we did to get ready for this stitch off after we transitioned from that super lightweight cotton. All right, get that needle up now. So now we're going to double it. Now we're going to double it. And before I do that, let's see if we can just see if we want to make any other adjustments to set ourselves up for success. And let me show these to you as well before we kind of launch into this next phase. Let me grab our stitch off holder. That is our top stitch. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, so here is, this again, I believe was for Gary. Gary wanted to see 4 layers of denim. So this is 4 layers of denim. We did a zigzag, we did a straight stitch. Beautiful, beautiful stitch presentation. We can tell that our bobbin case is working cooperatively with our upper tension right now because the spacing, the formation, the integrity of the stitching, both on the zigzag where we have needle swing and also on the straight stitching, is exactly as it should be on this denim. And I know that Debbie is a denim sewer because that's what was under the needle when this machine arrived. So let's go across and look at these. Beautiful, beautiful stitching. Totality to the stitching as well. Get a little bit closer. Very, very pleased with how this 130-6 just did in managing these 4 layers of denim. Again, 4 layers of denim, you look at it from the side, it's not a walk in the park, is it? That's some pretty thick stuff. And we got some beautiful stitching. Now let me turn it over. This was our top stitch again. Let's turn it over and look at that lock stitch and see how we did in setting this machine up for success. Again, we adjusted that presser foot pressure because we had just got done sewing that lightweight cotton. And then we also made a little bit of an upper tension adjustment as well to try to accommodate this lock stitch that we're looking at right now. And you know what? I think we did a really good job because that lock stitch looks absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on. Let me go across. And I think it's really, really good. And again, this material is not laying absolutely even. It's kind of puckering a little bit. All in all, a very, very good, a very, very nice lock stitch, but we could always make it better, couldn't we? All right, now let's go to totality of the stitching. Now let's go to 8 layers and see what we think. Let's go to 8 layers now. This makes me a little bit nervous because I love involving all of our friends that are in the live stream, but I didn't pre-test this. I didn't try doing 8 layers of denim. I didn't do it. And the needle is getting a little bit tired, so I hope I didn't bite off more than I could chew. Now this is our 8 layers. If we kind of take this, here's our 4 layers. We take this over and fold it like that, because that's what Emma wanted to see. Emma, that rebel from Naples, Florida, doggone it. She said, Scott, I want to see you really push this machine, buddy. So this is what I'll show you from a couple different angles. This is what 8 layers of denim looks like. If this were our first sew off with a brand new needle, yeah, well, let's do it. No problem. We got this. Yeah, we've done a lot of sewing on this needle, you guys. A lot of sewing. But let's give it a try anyway, right? All right, 8 layers of heavy grade denim. Let's get that into position. And yes, I'm going to bump up that presser foot pressure even a little bit more. Now, if you didn't know it, on your 130-6, what you see for presser foot clearance is what you have. There is no hyperextension on this model. And by hyperextension, I mean that on some machines, you can take that presser foot lever from the up position like this, and you can push it up a little bit further to get more clearance. On the 130 class, what you see is what you get. You don't have any more. So this is going to be, I'll see if this machine can accommodate this and still actually feed the material. I think we can get away with it. It's going to be, let me adjust the camera. Oops. What I was meaning to show you, here's our 8 layers. It's going to be real snug against that presser foot, between the feed dog and the presser foot. I mean, we're at about max right now. We're at the max. So I'm going to get that underneath the presser foot as best as I can. There we go. Get that presser foot lever down. And then what we're going to do is obviously bump up our presser foot pressure. We're still going to get a little bit of a reduction in the fullness of that stitch because of the thickness of what we're working with. But we're going to see if we can get as much as we can possibly get. So let's go ahead and bump this up. 3, 4, 5, 6. I actually want 6 turns on this presser foot adjuster up here. A total of 6 turns. Because this is it's not gonna be an easy. I hope we get good feed. I hope we get good feed on it. All right, so let's start with a straight stitch. And I'm going to go almost to the max on the straight stitch. I'm also going to make an adjustment on our upper tension as well. Going to make an adjustment on our upper tension and take that up even a little bit higher than we have it right now. I took it up about 3/4 of an inch of a turn, if that makes any sense. All right, let's see what we get. This is a little bit nervous, a little bit of a nervous time here. Let's see how we do. And we'll do a straight stitch and a zigzag just like we did on the other machine. We'll start with a straight and then go to a zigzag. And you can see Gary's stitches right over here through 4 layers. All right, here we go. Cross your fingers and cross your toes. All right, here we go. I don't know if you saw that needle. I was really holding the power back. That needle hit that 8 layers of heavy grade denim. And for just a second, it stopped and go, oh, heck no. No way, man. No way. Oh, that's fun. That's fun, isn't it? You know what? That looks pretty good. I think we might have taken a little bit. Remember how I bumped up that upper tension? I think we may have taken a little bit away from that top stitch. The top stitch is good, but it could be better. And that is again where I kind of guessed on really wanting to make sure we didn't lose that lock stitch. I bumped this up a little bit before we launched into this 8 layers of heavy grade denim. And I might have gone just a little bit too far. So I'm going to make a quick adjustment back before we go into our next sew off with the zigzag. But if you've never done 8 layers of heavy grade denim before on one of your machines, give it a try. It is pretty exciting. Pretty exciting. So again, you can see the thickness difference between Gary's and Emma's stitch off right there. As we look at it from the side. This is Gary's up here. Wait a second. Yeah, that's Gary's up here. And this is Emma's down here with the 8 layers. 4 versus 8. Kind of see it from this way too. All right, so let's go into now launching with a zigzag on these 8 layers of denim. And I think we're pretty golden as far as our setup right now. We made adjustments on the presser foot pressure, made adjustments on the upper tension. We just adjusted it back a little bit. And now we're going to try a zigzag needle swing. Probably go like around 4x4, something like that. Okay, that should be pretty good. 4x4. All right, so let's take this up to 4. Actually, we'll do 3.5. We'll do 3.5 by 3.5. Right about to there. Three and a half by 3.5. Right about there. So that's our setup. We set our stitch length at about 3.5. We set our stitch width at right around 3.5. Yep, there it is. Let's give this a try. 8 layers of heavy grade denim, you guys. 8 layers. You can already see that straight stitch that we just did for Emma on those 8 layers. Very, very good looking straight stitch. But again, I think our top stitch, we took a little bit away from it. So now we're going to see what result we get with needle swing. We backed off that upper tension just slightly. And hopefully I didn't back it off too far, because if I backed it off too far, we're not going to have a nicely defined lock stitch zigzag on the bottom of this 8 layers. So we'll see. All right, here we go. I kind of hit the gas a little bit hard at the launch there, didn't I? Oh, that's fun. I like speed. You guys know that. I like speed. I do. One of my bucket list things is to go out to the salt flats out in Nevada, out towards Mindy. Mindy is one of our good cow country friends. And go out to the salt flats in Nevada, rent one of those fancy exotic cars like a Ferrari or a Lotus or a Lamborghini, and then do about 160, 180 miles an hour across the salt flats. Yeah, that would be fun. That would be super fun. Anybody wants to join me, just let me know. All right. So let's get this set up so we can look at this sew off finally. I'll flip it like this, actually. Nope, it was better the other way. Okay. Okay, so Gary wanted to see 4 layers. That's these top 2 rows here. Emma wanted to see 8 layers. These are the 2 rows on the bottom. So let's look at that top stitching first, and then we'll flip it over and look at the lock stitching. I'm seeing some really good looking stitches, you guys. I'm seeing some really good looking stitches. And again, the reason that we go through the extra effort, the reason we go through the extra effort of making adjustments to the presser foot pressure and making a little tweak to the upper tension, etc., is because when we do 4 layers up here, we don't want to see a drastic difference when we go to 8 layers down here. There's going to be a little bit of a difference because of the thickness factor of what that tiring needle and thread have to be able to manage. But all in all, we still maintain a page 34 stitch output, whether it's 4 layers or whether it's 8 layers down here. So let's take a look at that stitching and see what you guys think. Some very, very good looking stitching. Again, not an easy sew off. Neither one of them is really easy. Whether it's the 4 layers that Gary wanted to see or the 8 layers that Emma wanted to see, we're still going through heavy grade denim. And 4 layers of heavy grade denim is not a light sew off at all. But we set ourselves up as best as we could for success by making the adjustments that we did. And I want you all to understand why we made those adjustments. As you go to this level of sewing right here with these 8 layers of heavy grade denim, increasing that presser foot pressure is a foregone conclusion. You got to do it. And you've got to also take into account when you get into these 8 layers of heavy grade denim, you're also going to have to really factor in the difficulty of creating that lock stitch, pulling that thread back up through those 8 layers of heavy grade denim, or up here, these 4 layers of heavy grade denim here. So we're going to have a little bit more upward mobility to that thread, and that means bumping up our upper tension right here so that it's going to pull up. Again, if you're brand new to sewing, and oftentimes our friends that join us in these live streams, they're brand new to sewing. They're just looking at it as a possibility. The upper tension unit, this unit right up here, is in a constant tug of war with the bobbin case over here. The bobbin case, that you kind of see it. If you kind of look underneath the machine, it's way underneath there. And that upper tension is pulling up. That bobbin case is pulling down. And when they get into a rhythm with each other, where they like each other, they're friends, they're working collaboratively, you get results like this, where you've got a beautifully defined top stitch, both with the zigzag needle swing on 4 layers on top here, and also the same result on these 8 layers on the bottom. Now, what are we going to see on that lock stitch? Because we went through a lot of preparation to try to set ourselves up for success. As we rotate it around and we get that into position again, we're going to still see a very, very good looking stitch product. If I can get that balanced with one hand. Again, if we had a brand new needle, if we had a higher grade thread, we could have given better results. But what I'm seeing is some page 34 stitching. The spacing, the formation, the integrity of the stitch, both on the upper row. This is our 4 layers up here. This is our 4 layers. This is our 8 layers down here. You're not going to see a dramatic difference between that stitching. And that really is a testimony to how well Debbie Brown's machine is doing right now in managing what otherwise is a tricky sew-off. And I actually like the look of that 8 layers even better, and that was the more difficult sew-off that we took on those bottom 2 rows. Stop right there. Yeah, I actually like, we made a few more little tweaks. Before we did that 8 layers. And that was exactly the right direction to go, because the stitch quality on those 8 layers of denim, I'm actually liking that even more than the 4 layers on top. Up here, we got a little bit of a stubbiness because our upper tension was a little bit too high. And so I backed that off a little bit when we went to the 8 layers, and then we got a nice, we didn't have that compressed straight stitching on the bottom like we do here. We got a nice fuller straight stitch here when we backed off that upper tension. So here we were pulling up a little bit too hard, and we compressed that straight stitch. Here we backed it off, and we got more of the fullness of that straight stitch back, even though we went through 8 layers of heavy grade denim. 8 layers versus 4 layers on top. So I'm really grateful to Gary and Emma for kind of challenging us with the idea of doing this, because then we can see the impact that we can bring by tweaking our adjustments as we go through different phases and thicknesses of material. Yeah, kind of cool, isn't it? We learn a lot in the classroom, and we learn how to set ourselves up for success. And when we don't hit the mark, we can make adjustments to make it better. Yeah. So if you joined a little bit late, this is kind of what we just did. 8 layers versus 4 layers. Kind of what it looks like from the side. If I pinch it together. Yeah. Very cool. Very fun. All right, we'll throw that back with our 100% cotton and our elk hide. And let's figure out what we're going to do next. So I've got some of this upholstery material. I've got some bubblegum material. I've got some veg tan leather. I like the veg tan leather because it has a real flat nap on the back. But I'm not saying that we have to sew that or this or that. I'll let you guys pick. So we've got commercial upholstery material. We've got bubblegum material. We've got veg tan leather here. I've got saddle grade leather right there. And then I also have a little bit more of this protected full grain leather as well. What would you guys like to see next? Protected full grain leather, saddle grade leather, veg tan leather, bubblegum material, or commercial upholstery material, this stuff right here. You guys type in the chat what you want to see, and I'm sure Emma will jump in, but somebody else jump in as well. I love Emma's participation and Paula and Sunny and everybody else participating. But if someone else wants to jump in as well and tell me what you want to see us sew next. We've already done elk hide. We've already done cotton. We've already done denim. 8 layers of denim, 4 layers of denim, cotton, 2 layers of elk hide, a single layer of elk hide. And now we've got this protected full grain leather, saddle grade leather, veg tan leather, bubblegum material, and commercial upholstery material. I'm going to set these down and I'll take a look at the chat real quick. Yeah, I agree, Sonny. I think our stitch, and again, I'm a little bit nervous about this needle because I did a lot of sewing on this needle, like I showed you guys before we launched into this live stream. So this needle, even though it's a Schmetz needles are the holy grail of needles, along with organ needles. Organ makes a very fine needle as well, but my top pick always for needle is Schmetz, which has German roots, just like this sewing machine. But in lieu of a Schmetz needle, I've tried other needles too. I've done those hobby, whatever those things are called. You guys know what I'm talking about. The new needle that's out there. I call it the Hello Hobby or something, but it's Hello something or whatever. Needles. We've done organ needles, but even Schmetz needles get dull after a while, and I hope we're not going to push this needle too far. Well, and I don't want to speak prematurely and invite trouble. I don't want to speak prematurely and invite trouble. And I'm not concerned about trouble. I'm not concerned about trouble because Sunny is here. Emma is here. I believe Paula is here as well. Yep, I see Paula in the live chat as well. So I've got 3 of my leadership team members that are ready to intervene if there's an issue. But I made a couple of adjustments based on what Paula and Emma suggested after our last live stream where we were invaded by a porno person that was trying to promote their smut and their website. A number of you were here when that happened the last time. And so I took some of those steps that the ladies recommended. Again, our family, we got so many smart people. We've got the smartest students and the smartest fellow teachers of any classroom on the internet. And so far, so good. I hope I don't hex this. I hope I don't hex this with some porno person showing up again, but I took those steps and hopefully it keeps us safe. Otherwise, our moderators will jump on it. So I know they will. So. Oh, Sunny is saying hello something. Let me pull out those needles. I'll show you what I mean. Where are they? These are the needles that I was trying to describe, Sunny. Hello. Okay, they're called Hello Hobby. These are called Hello Hobby. I think I've called them Hello Kitty too. But these Hello Hobby needles are a brand new needle that's out there in the marketplace. I know that Walmart has begun to promote them and put them on the shelf next to the Schmetz needles. And we've used these on a couple of live streams, on a couple of premieres already. And generally they've done a pretty good job. Again, they're set up as a universal needle, which means as you look at the design of the needle kind of going from the top down, from the shaft all the way down to the point, the scarf, the shaft, The needle point itself is set up to be able to accommodate a wide field of materials as a universal needle. If you didn't know it, and some of us just don't know, universal needles were designed as a needle that could accommodate a wide field of sewing with different types of materials. So these can handle generally woven materials. They can handle knits. They can handle 100% cotton. They can handle leather, and they do a real good job with a wide field of materials. So this is that Hello Hobby needle that is brand new to the market. And I've tried to give a little bit of exposure to it because they're the new kids on the block, and they're stepping into a field of needles with veterans like Schmetz and Organ, and you guys can name other ones too that some of you might use on your machines. But generally, they do a decent job. They do generally do a decent job. And Jonathan is casting a vote for the saddle grade leather. So let's do that. Jonathan is saying, let's see that saddle grade leather. And this is saddle grade leather right here. As the name would imply, this stuff is used for heavy leather applications. So you might see, and again, depending on where the leather is cut from, the thickness of the leather will vary. When I cut it off of the pieces that Emma sent me from Florida, from a leather making shop where they have scraps, and she bought a bag of scraps for me, and that's kind of what I'm using, which is awesome. So depending on what part of the hide they cut it from, it could be 2 ounces thickness, it could be three, it could be four. These sections that I cut here kind of vary. This is a little thinner, this gets a little bit thicker, and this is kind of like a middle range right there. So we've got this saddle grade leather that Jonathan wants to see, and I might be a rebel and try three thicknesses of it. I don't know that I've done that before. I did it off camera on Debbie Brown's machine, but I didn't do it on the live stream with a needle that already has gotten a beating. I'm almost nervous to try it on this tiring Schmetz needle, but we'll give it a try. If we run into some major problems, if the needle breaks or we get some major stitch presentation issues, I might swap out the needle. I might swap it out. I just might. But otherwise, we'll honor Jonathan's request. And what I'll do with this bottom piece is I'll flip it the opposite way. So we've got a nice finished leather finish. Let me try to line these up a little bit. We got a nice finished leather finish on the bottom and on the top. We don't have to deal with that nap factor, even though the nap on this saddle grade leather is not too bad. But look at what we're going to be trying to sew through with a needle that's getting pretty doggone tired. That is a crazy thickness. It's probably about as thick as if you were to take 2 or 3 US quarters and stack them on top of each other. 2 or 3 US quarters is the thickness that we're working with, probably about 14 to 16 ounces of leather. 14 to 16 ounces of leather with what was originally made and marketed as a household sewing machine by PFAFF. Again, they introduced the class 130 in what year? What year did they introduce the class 30, presenting their first Zigzag sewing machine? It's already been mentioned in the live chat, and I don't want Emma to answer this because Emma, I think, provided the answer initially. Does anyone remember what year PFAFF introduced their first class 130 sewing machine? And in the meantime, I'll try to get this set up to do these 3 layers of saddle grade leather that Jonathan wanted to see. Jonathan just said, I want to see saddle grade leather. He didn't say, hey, Scott, let's do 3 layers. I'm saying that because I have that much confidence in Debbie Brown's machine. And again, if we run into some issues, I might end up switching out that needle because we beat this needle up pretty doggone good by now. Let me get that into place and move the camera over so you can see the thickness of what we're going to be attempting. Paula would like to see some of her Kona cotton with the quilt batting in between. So I'll try to grab some of that, and we'll do that right after we do this saddle gray leather for Jonathan. So no one's jumping in with the date, but I like the history of machines too, and I know you do as well. So this class 130 was first introduced by PFAFF in the year 1932. 1932. So if you're in Facebook groups or other places like that, and they're not sharing knowledge, you can share the knowledge. There's no problem with that. If they've got a good classroom on Facebook or Etsy or one of those other venues, they should want to know about the facts of the models that they're talking about. So 1932 is when PFAFF introduced their first real Zigzag 130 class machine. 1932. Yeah, there it is. All right. Blah, 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 blah. Hey, welcome to, this is exciting. I love when people that have been away for a little bit all of a sudden will pop back again. Welcome back to Dr. T from Dr. T. Share with everybody what country you're from, would you, my friend? Dr. T will share, if he would be so kind, share what country you are from, my friend. And Dr. T sounds like he's tired. He's under the weather. So let's keep Dr. T in our thoughts and prayers, if you would be so kind. So Dr. T hopefully will share what country he is from. It's always great to have folks from around the world join us. So we're gonna do a zigzag now on these 3 layers of saddle gray leather. Again, this is what we're going to be attempting on Debbie Brown's machine that just has been repaired after replacing all of this over here. In case you didn't join the live stream right away, this machine fell from about a little bit over 4 feet up and hit the kitchen floor hard. It fell off of the table and crashed. And so there was quite a bit of resurrection that we had to do to this machine. So, yeah. All right, let's lay down a zigzag on these 3 layers. Let's see if we can do this. And then we will lay down a straight stitch next to it. And I'm going to change the camera angle so you can see that I'm not going to hand start this machine. A lot of people with attempting a sew off like this would be hand starting it. That means as you engage the foot controller, you're giving the balance wheel a little bit of a turn to assist it in piercing through that crazy thickness of 3 layers of saddle gray leather. We're not going to do that because I've already gone through this motor, and this motor is crazy, crazy strong. Just want to make sure you can see the leather as well. Yep, you can see that. You can see across the machine. So we're just going to engage this. I'll hold onto the thread so we can get a nice clean launch. I'm going to back this up a little bit more. And again, we're doing this for Jonathan, who said, show us saddle gray leather. So we're going to do that. All right, here we go. Holding our thread so we get a nice clean launch. And we're going to try to go down these 3 layers. I'll do my best to keep it straight. Maybe, matter of fact, I will grab one of my little clips. Grab one more. Yeah. All right, let's give this a go. 3 layers, executing a zigzag with a Tiring Schmetz size 9014 universal needle. Here we go. Slow down, Scott. Slow down. Slow down. Nice and slow and steady. Slow and steady. Woo! That's a little nerve-wracking. That's a little nerve-wracking. That's a little nerve-wracking. How exciting. How exciting to open people's eyes up. The Sailrite, is that what they're called? The Sailrite people that sell the light industrial machines for thousands of dollars because they say that machines like Debbie Brown's can't sew at this level. That's what they say. That's kind of what they say. I've actually talked to some Sailrite people, And they said, those household sewing machines can't sew leather like this. It's not possible. And then I send them links to some of our videos, and I never hear from them again. What's up with that? I never hear from them again after they see what our vintage sewing machines are capable of doing, not as a one-off, but again and again and again and again and again and again. Basic maintenance, basic oiling. You take care of your machine, it'll take care of you, just like your car or your truck or your SUV or your smart car or whatever you drive. If you take care of that machine, it will take care of you. It's the same thing with our vintage sewing machines. And when Debbie's machine comes to the workshop in pieces after falling over 4 feet to a hard floor, and it comes through those ashes and becomes a phoenix again, look at what it can do. And look at the stitch quality that it delivers. That's our top stitch. That's our lock stitch. Through 3 layers of saddle gray leather that our friend Jonathan said, Scott, do the saddle gray leather, buddy. Do the saddle gray leather. And he was probably thinking like one layer, maybe 2. We just did 3 layers of saddle gray leather. And we laid down page 34 stitching like that. And like that. If any of my friends at Sailrite or at Conso are watching right now, this is what a fully optimized PFAFF 130-6 from Indiana, the great Hoosier state, is able to do. Yeah, it can do that. It just did. It just did it right now. Ha! On a live stream. No editing involved, ladies and gentlemen. No editing. No editing. All right, let's do a straight stitch next to it now. Saddle gray leather. 3 layers of this stuff. Crazy thick, crazy ridiculous. Put on a little bit of music to sew by. How about a little bit of polka music? Yeah. Old-fashioned polka music, nonetheless. All right, let's make it adjusted real quick. Take our stitch width down to 0. And right now we're set right around on 4. That's probably not bad. Right around, yeah, we'll leave it right around 4. Yeah, perfect. So let's try a straight stitch now on this saddle gray leather, 3 layers of it. Here we go. And I didn't mention it before because you guys that are here all the time know this. But whenever you launch, always make sure your take-up arm, this is your take-up arm right here. Make sure your take-up arm is at the highest position and it's just getting ready to come on that downstroke. Watch. Come on, come on. See that? It's on its downstroke right now. That will give you the best piercing possibility when you're doing some of the more difficult sew-offs. It should be on that downstroke. See that? Yeah. All right. Here we go. Oh, let me show you no hand start again. Cross the machine. I want you to be able to see the leather. There we go. All right, a little bit of a hold on here. I hope we have a good result. And I only say that because this needle we are pushing this needle beyond what we should be doing, even for a Schmetz needle right now. But let's just do it. Let's just do it. Ha ha! Yeah. All right, here we go. Oh, wow. Did you see that? I had it a little bit too low. It didn't have enough downswing. It hit that leather like, oh, no way, buddy. No way. Let's bring it up just a little bit to give it a little bit more momentum possibility. All right, here we go. Now, let's try it again. Slow it down, slow it down. Slow it down, slow it down. Slow it down. I did not have the pressure foot pressure high enough for that straight stitch. You don't need as much for the zigzag because that material is advancing and you've got a little bit more span for feeding. This one, yeah, we needed more pressure foot pressure. We got a very compressed stitch. It's a beautiful stitch, but it's compressed, especially when I launched into it super fast initially. Ah, ha, ha. I'm going to sew that one more time, I think. Although I know this needle is getting super tired. All right, I'm going to bump our pressure foot pressure up. It might not help dramatically because the needle is getting so tired, but I'm going to try it anyway. So our pressure foot pressure adjuster for the 130 is right up here. We're quite a ways down already with the heavy sew-offs we're doing, but I'm going to give it about 2 or 3 turns. 3.5. Yeah. All right, let's try it again. Ha-ha. Yeah, they can actually be even more expensive than that, Emma, but you're right. It's going to be, for the average sail right machine, it's going to be right around $1,200. That seems pretty much spot on. All right, let's try this again and see if we can get a little bit. Again, we're getting a compression of the stitch here because of the feed factor. We got so much leather we're going through. 3 layers of this. We bumped up our pressure foot pressure. Let's see if we can get a little bit more fullness of stitch. Once I got through that initial launch, we did pretty well, but it's still a little bit on the compressed side. Let's see how we can do with this. Let me back away again so you can see. We're going to launch without a hand start. Oh, I forgot I had my diet soda over there. That'll be right, perfect right about now. United States Marine Band is playing this next piece, you guys. Check it out. All right. See how we do. Let's see if our adjustment with that pressure foot pressure helps in giving us a fuller stitch. Here we go. I'm intentionally going slow to show you, even sewing at this crazy level, we don't have to go pedal to the metal to get the job done. We don't have to do it. But yeah, that did help. That helped quite a bit, actually. Again, we're going at a crazy level, but it looks better. And again, what else could we add to this machine other than a standard universal type foot like it has right now? What could we put here instead to give us even better feed in conjunction with our pressure foot pressure? What could we add? All right, let's take a look at some of these. Get our stitch off folder. Yeah, exactly. Emma's right on the right train of thought. We could add a roller foot. We could also add a walking foot as well. There are PFAFF walking foots that work with this machine, and that would also give you a little bit more even feed. But all in all, the machine did really well, especially with a needle that's getting really, really tired. Let's take a look. This is our top stitch. And look at the difference when you go from this row up here to this row, and we bumped up the pressure foot pressure. You see how dramatic of an impact that can have? Now, again, when we launched on the far right side, we launch into it, and those feed dogs are racing to try to move those 3 layers of material. You'll see a little bit of a compression on that launch, but once we get into an even needle movement and even feed dog feed, we get a beautiful stitch presentation moving across. Let's look at those. zigzag, and then our straight stitch rows. See, on the end, we're kind of feeding it unevenly as we're racing through it, and that motor is trying to push us fast, so it compresses way down. Look at that compression. As we move back the other direction, and we've gotten into a nice even rhythm with those 3 layers of saddle grade leather, all of a sudden that stitch comes back to fullness again. That is some beautiful, beautiful stitching under a very difficult sew-off challenge. 3 layers of saddle grade leather. Again, if you look from the side, what we just went through. And the machine managed it real well. Let's turn around and look at that lock stitch. And what I can see with that lock stitch is some excellent, excellent stitch quality. Let's start on this end where we're initially launching with that motor kind of racing a little bit. It causes that stitch to be compressed because the feed is not able to keep it even as it's launching, and then we move into a nice rhythm and watch what happens with that stitch. Especially that bottom row. That bottom row is showing us the power of the presser foot adjustment. That presser foot adjustment made all the difference in the world, in giving us a much fuller, beautifully defined stitch. And again, we're looking at the lock stitch now, which is always more difficult for a machine to create. Pause right there. I'm going to give that a solid page 34. We can always make it better by using a walking foot or by using a roller foot, by using a sharper needle instead of one that we beat to death. But we still are getting incredible results with a crazy difficult sew off of 3 layers of saddle grade leather. And the stitch quality is just off the charts for the setup that we have for this machine right now. We throw in a brand new leather needle, we can even step this up to a higher level. Beautiful, beautiful stitching on the part of this PFAFF 130-6 that arrived at the workshop crippled and in pieces after suffering over a 4-foot fall to a hard floor in Debbie Brown's house down in Indiana. So great success. This is our sew-off sandwich so far. If you're joining the live stream late, this is what we've done so far on this live stream. We did a total of 2 thicknesses of genuine elk hide, single layer of elk hide. We did this 100% cotton without a stiffener. It makes it real tricky for the machine and maintaining stitch integrity, but Debbie's machine did a brilliant job with it. And then we did this combo sew off here with on the left side 8 layers of heavy grade denim, on the right side 4 layers of heavy grade denim. And again, the machine did a beautiful job of managing that as well. And then we just got done doing what, according to a lot of the light industrial manufacturers out there, is impossible. It can't be done. but we just did it with 3 layers of saddle grade leather with a very tiring needle. We throw a leather needle in here, we could probably go up to 4 or maybe even 5 layers of saddle grade leather. We just have to manage that feed factor, and that's where a roller foot or a walking foot would really help us out quite a bit. But again, that is unheard of in most vintage sewing machine circles, this level of sewing. And we just did it on this live stream. So far, this is what we've done so far on this live stream. Most people would consider that to be making our case. We're done. This machine arrives all busted up. We got to throw all this into the machine from this very generous, kind donor machine. And now we put it to the test through all of these different phases, and it's done a brilliant job. But we're going to go a little bit further. We'll go a little bit further. Oh, hey, welcome to Jan. Welcome to Jan. Jan Shipman. I think I've said hello to everybody else. I hope I didn't miss anybody. If I missed anybody, I know that my leadership team, my moderating team has already made you feel welcome, and that's what we want. We want you all to feel welcome. So here's again what we have kind of left in the wings. Let me kind of go over it with you. Oh, and let me grab that cone of cotton before I forget. That was a special request by my friend Paula. Might have some over here. Okay, so I'm going to add to this stack some of this cone of cotton that Paula Noel sent from Florida. I'm going to take out this little pin. And this cone of cotton is a high premium grade, 100% cotton. It has, from what Paula told me, it has Egyptian roots in some way. And we'll give this a go as well. But we've got this cone of cotton. We've got this veg tan leather right here. We've got this bubblegum material, which is a real stretchy, high vinyl type concentrated, kind of a fake leather. It almost looks like that Naugahyde stuff, but it's not. And it's got, you look at that stretch factor on it, it's just crazy. And then we've got some protected full grain leather, this blue stuff right here. And then finally, we've got this commercial upholstery material. Now, think about what we already sewed on Debbie Brown's machine. We've already proven the case. This is just icing on the cake. This cone of cotton, this veg tan leather, this bubblegum material, this protected full grain leather, and then finally this commercial upholstery material. What would y'all like to see next? What should we try next on Debbie Brown's resurrected machine that took that 4-foot fall? What do y'all think? Emma would like to see bubblegum material. Somebody else wants to chime in. I'll kind of line up the materials in the order that you want to see them. We'll do bubblegum first because Emma was the first one to jump in and make that request. What would you like to see after that? We've got veg tan leather. We've got some of Paula Noel's cone of cotton with a batting in between it. We've got protected full grain leather. We got commercial upholstery material. What do y'all think? Here's the bubble gum. I'll set that up there. I thought you told me, Paula, that the Kona cotton, if you Google Kona cotton, it somehow has Egyptian roots or something like that. I have no idea. Yeah, I think I Googled it and I thought somehow this Kona stuff has Egyptian roots. Um, Jan, when you say vinyl, what are you referring to, dear? Because we have this bubblegum material which has a high concentration of vinyl in it. That's the one that Emma wanted to see. This stuff right here. And then we've got this veg tan leather. We've got this Kona cotton, protected full grain leather, and then we've got this upholstery material here. This stuff. I wish y'all could feel this in your hands. It's got like a gluey base to it almost. It's got like a gluey, sticky. Bleh. So, but these will be our final sew-offs on Debbie Brown's machine to wrap up this live stream. We'll start with the bubblegum stuff. Matter of fact, I'll put these back to back. So we got 2 layers of this bubblegum material. And then we can see the stitching on both sides very easily. I'll get this into position. I got way too much here, don't I? Set that right there. I think we'll launch with a zigzag too for fun. Would be, yeah, okay. So Jan also is wanting to see this bubblegum material. And again, if you couldn't see it before, let me move these other things to the side. You couldn't see it before. The reason that we call it bubblegum is it's mainly on this side right here. The stretch factor of that. Look at that when I pull it. It's like bubblegum. I don't know what flavor. Now I'm inspired to have bubblegum, but I'll wait. I'll be a good boy. All right, let's do a zigzag on this bubblegum material. See what you guys think of this. Holy mackerel, we're back to rock and roll again. I'm going to pick something else. Hold on. All right, this next one is under the genre or mood of happy, and it's called On My Skateboard. I'm waiting for the crash. I'm waiting for the crash. All right, here we go. For Jan and for Emma, we're going to do this high concentration of vinyl material. Almost looks like a Naugahyde fake leather, and it's got this weird backing on it as well. We're going to do 2 layers of this, and we'll see how it does managing needle swing with a zigzag. Here we go. Beautiful job. Holy mackerel. This is tricky stuff to sew. It truly, truly, truly is because of that vinyl factor. But Debbie Brown's machine, look at how it just managed that. That's our top stitch. That's our top stitch. That's our lock stitch right there. Solid page 34, y'all. Solid page 34. Beautiful, beautiful job. All right, let's take it down to a straight stitch. Wowzer. That's a beautiful looking straight stitch too. Same thing on the back of the material. Beautiful. We'll take a look at these. Again, I should probably switch out the needle, but we're just going to push this Schmetz needle until the very end. If it breaks, then we'll have an excuse to change it out. Otherwise, we're just going to keep going with it. Just going to keep going with it. All right, and then I'm going to lay down one more little border of a real tight zigzag next to this to kind of border it off. And then I'll leave the rest of this material for Debbie to sew on. So let's take this down to a, say, a 1.5 by 1.5 on a zigzag now. Right about there. So 1.5 on our stitch length, 1.5 on our stitch width. And I didn't even explain, I should have explained it much earlier, but on this 130-6, when you want to sew in reverse, unlike the Singer machines, you're going to take this all the way to the bottom to sew in reverse. Where most Singer machines, you're going to push it all the way to the top like that. So, okay, so 1.5 is what we said. Right about there. 1.5 on stitch length, and I'll go ahead and lock it in. 1.5 on stitch width. Let's see what we get. Let me shut that music off for a second. All right, listen to Debbie Brown's 130-6. It takes a major fall, number of parts replaced, adjustments, rewiring, you name it, it's gotten it. And listen to this silky smooth machine run now. She is such a happy girl, such a happy girl. Slow it down. Perfect. All right, let's take a look at these stitches now on this bubblegum material. Let's take a look at these stitches. And before this machine gets shipped back to Indiana, Debbie was originally talking about the idea maybe of I think initially we talked a little bit about the idea of maybe I would have to go down to the History Museum in South Bend, Indiana, but I really don't have any trips planned for there. And then there was talk of maybe her driving her Prius up to Wisconsin. But the easiest thing, and with the gas prices continue to go up, that really the easiest thing for us to do is just to ship the machine. So that's what we finally settled on, is just shipping the machine back to Indiana. I might have to clamp this stuff on. It's not going to lay real smooth. Hold on a second. All right, we got lemons. We got lemons with this bubblegum material giving us a hard time, so we're going to see if we can work with lemons here. All right, so we're looking at this bubblegum material, high concentration of vinyl, and we just sewed it on Debbie Brown's 130-6. I'm seeing some beautiful, beautiful stitching, both with the zigzag, the straight stitch, and then finally this compressed zigzag here where we went down to about 1.5 by 1.5. And just an absolutely gorgeous job. I don't even have to move the camera. I can just sit right there and just show it to you. The stitch formation, the stitch integrity, everything about that stitching, whether it's the zigzag, the straight stitch, or the compressed zigzag, is exactly what we want to be seeing for a page 34 stitch. It's absolutely spot on. There we go. That's even better if I raise it up a little bit. Beautiful stitching on a very tricky material. A lot of vinyl in this stuff, and it just really makes life difficult. So I'm going to turn it around now. We're going to kind of rotate it around and look at that lock stitch. And we'll see how our settings with pressure foot pressure, upper tension, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. We'll see how the machine managed this lock stitch. Again, the lock stitch is going to be trickier because that thread has to be pulled all the way back up through this sticky bubblegum material to define that lock stitch and to get it bang on. Let's see what we think of this. Once I get it even, that is. Getting a little bit of a reflection off there. Hold on a second. Oh, there we go. Now it's flatter. It was kind of puckered up on us. It was puckered up. So I'm even on this lock stitch with these 2 layers of bubblegum material. I'm seeing some very, very good looking stitching. Again, a tiring needle definitely plays a factor when you're dealing with a high vinyl concentrated type material like this. But even through this compressed zigzag where we had a huge amount of needle swing very rapidly, Debbie Brown's machine managed this sew off incredibly well as well. And if we put a brand new needle in here, like I'll do before I ship the machine back to Indiana, we can even step these stitches up to a higher level. Whoops. I wasn't looking at the computer there for a second, and you guys were, I didn't know what I was showing you, but it wasn't the stitch off. There we go. Now we're there. Now we're there. So some beautiful stitching, beautiful, beautiful stitching on this bubblegum material. I'm just gonna, whoops, I'm gonna drop it is what I'm gonna do. What I'll do is I'll send this back with the machine, and that way Debbie and her dad can also goof around with this stuff as well. And I've offered it before. If anyone ever wants to try this stuff, just send me a note. Send me a note, and I'll drop a chunk of this stuff in the mail to you, so you can give it a go. Give it a go yourself. See what you think of it. That's our lock stitch again that we're looking at right now, you guys. Beautiful stitching. Beautiful, beautiful stitching on a very, very tricky material. Very tricky stuff. Yeah. All right, let's throw that to the back with our little pile of sew off over here. And we'll see what you guys want to see next. Maybe we'll do the Kona cotton next, since that was one that Paula had specifically requested. Unless somebody else wanted to see. Yeah. Totally Jones. I love that. That's fun. That's totally. I wonder if their last name is Jones. Totally Jones. Yeah. You never know. All right. Let's try some of this Kona cotton. And again, we're adjusted. We're adjusted for. We just got done doing bubblegum material. I may back off that presser foot pressure just a wee bit. And this is going to be tough for us to see because we're dealing with Kona cotton that is white. And we're dealing with a white thread on top of that. So if I do it this way, then I can use those little clips to kind of hold it together. That might be a better bet. All right, put that right about there. And I've got this presser foot pressure cranked up really high right now, so I'm going to back this off a good 5 or 6 turns. So we're not going to be creating a lot of bunching on this cone of cotton. Now, Paula, since you requested this sew off with this cone of cotton, should we do a zigzag and a straight stitch on it? I'm going to wait for Paula to kind of chime in, and then we'll decide what we're going to sew on it as far as a straight stitch or a zigzag. I'm guessing she's going to say both. She's probably going to say both. Again, I'm kind of checking that presser foot pressure. If it's too high, we're going to get bunching, and we're going to get some puckering on the back of it. So I've got to back it off even a little bit more. We're cranked way up there right now for the heavier sew-offs that we've done. There we go. That feels pretty good right about there. What do you think, Paula? Paula, I'm just going to do a zigzag and a straight because that's probably what Paula would want to see. Paula's an all-or-nothing girl, so we're going to give her both. So we'll start with a zigzag, and then we'll move into a straight stitch after that. And again, we're going to have to kind of figure out our best way to see this since we're dealing white on white. All right, let's lay down a zigzag and then a straight stitch. Have a little bit of jazz music in the background. I don't know if you can hear that or not. It's real soft. All right, let's do a zigzag, and then we'll do a straight stitch on this cone of cotton, which, according to the Googling I did, has Egyptian roots. Somehow, wherever they get the cotton is somehow tied to Egypt. Has anyone else ever been in Egypt before? I was there just briefly coming from Saudi Arabia back to Germany, and we landed in Egypt. We flew in right over the pyramids and everything. But because we had weapons, they wouldn't let us off the plane. So I never actually stepped on the Egyptian soil. I just I looked at it through my little airplane window. That was about it. So that's all I can tell you. Oh, let me put these clamps on too. Paul always makes fun of my big, huge elephant clips. She sent me some smaller ones, but these are just so convenient to grab hold of, so I just usually grab them. All right, let's check this one out. Zigzag and then a straight stitch on this fancy cone of cotton stuff that my friend Paula Noel sent me from Florida. Here we go. Slow down, buddy. Slow down. See, we're getting a little bit of bunching even though I backed off, so I'm going to back off that presser foot pressure even a little bit more midstream. See if we can somehow keep it from puckering too badly. Move these down a little bit as well. Yeah, we're going to get that little puckering right there. I'll do my best to keep it flat down. Beautiful stitching. Oh my goodness gravy. That's why people love that cone of cotton. It's such a beautiful material to sew, isn't it? It's so beautiful. All right, let's do a straight stitch down this now. Let's get this back into position and we'll look at the stitching all in all. All right, straight stitch next to this zigzag on this cone of cotton with a quilt batting in between that my friend Paula Noel sent me a bunch of these at Christmas time as a resource, and I'm grateful for it. Here we go. All right, I didn't stay completely on course, but I did a fairly good job. Fairly good job. And here's some dance music for us as we get ready to look at this stitching. Oh, that is some pretty stitching. Oh my goodness gravy. I don't know if you can see that in the shot yet. You probably can't, but oh, I'm looking forward to showing these to you. Kona cotton. Isn't that something? Goodness gravy, Eloady. So that's our top stitch. Let me get that stitch off holder. And I should grab Paula's stitch off holder, since this is a special request from her. I got enough room. I don't know if I have enough room for these folks or not. I think I do. Let's do it up here by these folks. Okay, I think I almost got it. This is our top stitch we're going to look at first. On Paula's Kona cotton. The camera is really having trouble with it. Hold on a second. Does that help? Is my light on? It doesn't help, does it? Let me drop this down. Let's bring it over here. Get that light off. Let's check it on this angle over here. It's interesting. There's no problem right there, and then as soon as you move to there, it starts like, hey. Let's try changing the angle on that. Finally! I finally found the angle. Sort of. Maybe. Maybe not. Ah! That is some gorgeous stitching, y'all. Let's go and flip it around and look for that lock stitch now. let's get closer to these to check them out here. This again is our lock stitch on this Kona cotton. 2 layers of this 100% cotton that I believe has Egyptian roots and was generously provided by my friend Paula Noel from the great state of Florida. He's a cool little guy. Look at him. Well, folks, I don't know what you're seeing, but I'm seeing page 34 plus stitching with this lock stitch that we're looking at right now and the top stitch that we looked at just before it. Absolutely, wow. Amazing stitching, and certainly material plays into it. This is premium. I mean, this is the top of the shelf type cotton that you can use as a quilter, right? It's absolutely premium stuff. We're using a tired needle. We're using, middle of the road thread by Coates and Clark, but then we're using some off the charts Kona cotton quality stuff, blah, 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 blah. And we're getting results that are just crazy. Yeah. Oh, there it is. Crazy now. Now we can see it. Yeah. Amazing. All right. Thank you to all of you. Thank you to you, Cousin Jim and George and Ernie. And I have no idea what this guy's name is. He almost looks like me when I was a young man. We'll call him Scott. That's Scott right there. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for holding it still sort of for us. Yes. Ha-ha. Yeah, but if you couldn't really see it, this is the stitch off holder that Paula made for me at Christmas. Isn't that fun? Yeah. Very cool. All right, let's set that over there. Our Kona cotton is going to go back by our other sew-offs that we've already done, back over there. What do we have left? We have nothing left, really, sort of. We got to wrap this up in 10 minutes, so we're under 3 hours, you guys. When we come together, it's like time just races away. Where does it go? Ah! So we've got commercial upholstery material left. We've got protected full grain leather, and then we have vegetable tan leather left. I've got some other things, but that's pretty much it. I got a little square of elk hide left. You could always sew around the edges of the elk hide, and you could laugh at me as I'm trying to tame this beast of fury with its renewed vitality and strength. Yeah. So elk hide, veg tan leather, protected full grain leather, or commercial upholstery material. What do you guys think? Come on. Hurry up. Make a choice. Oh, we have a new person too. How fun. We have Munster. Munster is with us. Welcome to Munster. Yeah. Welcome to Munster. That's a fun name. I think I welcome. Oh, wait. I also didn't say welcome to So Fun. What a great screen name. Aha! So fun. Yeah, baby. I'm glad you like the videos, my friend. I'm glad you like them. So what do you guys think? Come on, somebody help me out here. Are we doing elk hide? Are we doing veg tan leather? Are we doing protected full grain leather? Or are we doing commercial upholstery material? La 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 la. That's all we have left. I could find other stuff. Who knows? But all right, I'm just gonna go for it then. Y'all are sleeping. You're sleeping in class. Oh yeah. This totally sounds like let's sew in a circle material. You know what? That's what I'm going to do. Instead of sewing around the edges and being all good and everything, we're just going to... Yeah. Let's do it. Let's do it, baby. I'll do my best to stay on course, but no promises. No promises! And we'll do, what should we do to make it kind of pretty? Let's do a 2x2 zigzag. Let's do a 2x2 zigzag. Yep, that's what we're going to do. Here we go. Turn, 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 turn. Get ready for the turn. Get ready, get ready, get ready, get ready. Okay, stop there. Let me clip these threads. All right, resume, resume. That's a real stiff part of the hide right there. Get a better shot for you guys. Hold on. There we go. There we go. Ha ha! Okay, harness it. Slow it down. Slow it down. More. All right, what I'm going to do real quick is totally weird, but bear with me. Check this out. It's cool, isn't it? Isn't it fun? Yeah, it is. Hold on. All right, we were just doing some really slow sewing, real slow sewing. We were doing slow sewing for an extended period of time. Let's do a temp test on the foot controller. See what I mean? The temp goes up when you're sewing slow, like I was just doing. 100 degrees is not ridiculous. but you need to monitor it. You need to monitor it. What about the motor? Let's check the motor. Let's check the motor. Motor. Hold on. The hottest point of the motor is always going to be the opposite end of the motor pulley. This is our motor pulley over here. This end over here is going to be the hottest. Let's check that. .5. Sounds like a radio station. And 93 degrees is not unreasonable for the level of sewing that we've been doing on this PFAFF 130S6, but you want to monitor it anyway. And remember, on these PFAFFs, there are lubrication points here and then also on the other end of the pulley. Ideally, you want to use a grease, but you can get away with using a few drops of kerosene here and here about every 6 hours of slow sewing. If you're doing a lot of slow sewing, lubricate the motor on either end. But all in all, we're getting some really good temperatures considering the style of sewing that we just got done doing with doing this particular piece right here that we're looking at in about 2 seconds. There we go. So we did a lot of controlled sewing executing this through this elk hide. Again, look at from the edge, it's about 3 to 4 ounces of elk hide. And I wanted to demonstrate that you can manage the speed even on a monster machine like this and get some great results. Let's turn it over and look at the lock stitch on this. So this is the sew off we just did, genuine elk hide, and we created a little bit of a artistic piece, didn't we? And all it is a compressed, slightly compressed zigzag as we were battling, going around and around and around and around to have a little bit of fun. Turn around, let's look at the lock stitch. Kind of hard to see, isn't it? You can see it around the edges, but then Nap does play with it a little bit as far as being able to see it. But this is just an example of we're having fun. We're learning how to manage the speed factor on a machine like this that has a 1.3 amp original PFAFF motor that I have taken and totally optimized. I amped it up quite a bit. So it's got a crazy amount of power, but you can harness it. But as you harness power, again, with a foot controller like we're using, you got to just monitor that temperature issue, don't you? You got to monitor that unless you're sewing at full speed. Again, that energy is going to build up in that foot controller as we're holding it back like a dam, going really, really slow to manage a sew off like this. And we just got to make sure that we watch for that temperature. Make sure it doesn't heat up too much. If it does, let it cool off and go back to sewing. Or you could always elect to swap it out for an electronic foot controller. You're not going to have that heat up issue any longer. But again, you're not going to be a purist. You're not going to be sewing with a foot controller that's vintage if you go to electronic. You're just not. You're not going to be a purist anymore, unless you kind of hide it and say, hey, look at the machine. Don't look at the foot controller. Yeah. So beautiful sew off. through some heavy, genuine elk hide, and Debbie Brown's machine managed it beautifully, beautifully. All right, how's our sew-off sandwich looking? How's our sew-off sandwich looking? This is what we've done so far on this live stream that we need to wrap up real quick here. Okay, and I'm not doing them in order. But we sewed this 100% cotton with no stiffener, real flimsy stuff, real tricky to feed and to get that pressure foot pressure right and everything. But we still delivered absolutely gorgeous stitching doing it. Absolutely gorgeous. Then we went to the muscle of this machine. I always refer to PFAFFs as mighty PFAFFs, because they are. And we went through 3 layers of this saddle grade leather without a hiccup, without a problem. 3 layers, guys. Crazy. We went through this heavy grade denim. On the left side is 8 layers. On the right side is 4 layers without an issue, without a problem. The machine just went munch, done, munch. Then we did some genuine elk hide. Looks like we did 2 layers of this. Like sewing a couple of belts together. And again, Debbie Brown's machine managed that also beautifully on this live stream. We're not talking about still shots that you can edit and fake it like a lot of people do. I'm just going to be honest. There are fakers out there that display sew-off, sometimes that weren't even done on that machine. And they go, hey, look, buy this machine for this outrageous price. And then you get the machine and you're incredibly disappointed because it's not going to deliver. It's not going to deliver like it's supposed to. But when you see a live stream like this, that's the proof in the pudding. More elk hide, munch, done. This is fun music. We did the bubblegum material. Crazy high vinyl concentration. And Debbie's machine went munch, done. We did this Kona cotton, this really cool Kona cotton. And it delivered page 34 plus stitching all the way around. Beautiful stitching. Wow! And then we did this just for fun, but also to demonstrate the harnessing of the power of this mighty PFAFF. I had to think for a second. 130. And it just delivered. I wish you could feel this. It's like, you can't get through? Yeah, we just did. Sorry to deliver that news. You lost. Debbie Brown's machine won. Yeah, it did. So here's our sew-off sandwich, or as I sometimes call it, our sewing Olympics. This is the real deal. This is really putting a machine to the test, not doing a simple sew-off, but going through a field of materials like this, making little tweaks and showing you how to adjust your machine so you can manage a field of sew-offs like this successfully. Whether it's adjusting pressure foot pressure or making subtle adjustments to the upper tension, in rare instances, going down to that bobbin case and making adjustments down there as well. We did it. Ha! Yeah. How exciting. And we got more sew-offs we could have done, but I don't want to keep you guys any longer. We got this veg tan leather. Remind me, I want to show this on the next machine that we do, which guess what that next machine is? It's going to be a machine that I just gave away. It's the 170th anniversary Class 15 put out by Singer last year to celebrate 170 years from their inception. In what year? Type it in the chat right now. What year did Singer start? And then they celebrated 170 years from that starting date last year in 2021. So I'm going to show this veg tan leather on Kathy Pecor's hand crank class 15 machine that she's going to come to the workshop and pick up next week. Next week. Yeah, we'll do that. Remind me, hold me accountable. Say, Scott, you said you were going to sew that veg tan leather on Kathy's 170th anniversary hand crank that she's coming to pick up at the workshop. She won it by writing a really cool essay that a number of the folks in this live stream right now read, or they heard me read it. I tried to read it. I gave it my best shot, and I'll probably ask Kathy to read it when she comes to the workshop. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do a live stream with Kathy in the workshop and show her class 15 hand crank doing stuff like we did today on this mighty PFAFF. And then also you get a chance to hear her read her story that the judges and myself said, that's it. That's it. Along with the other great essays that were also submitted by other great writers. Yeah. That's it, guys. I got nothing else. I got nothing else. Let me rotate this incredible heavy PFAFF machine. Can you imagine this falling from 4 feet like it did? It fell from 4 feet and crashed to the floor. Thank you again to the donor machine. Thank you, donor machine, for giving all of the parts. These are the old parts. The new parts are in the machine. Thank you for being so generous. Thank you. So there's Debbie's machine, you guys. You saw it do all kinds of dancing. I got to lift it like this. Jiminy crickets. It's a beast. There it is. Hey, all right. Yeah, baby. So Paula and Emma are both right in some instances. The question I asked is, when did Singer find their roots? What was their point of inception? The correct answer is 1851. So Emma nailed that part of it. But centennial year for Singer, that's a big deal. And as a matter of fact, I'll just show you guys real quick. See if I can get over there. Hold on. One of the next machines I'm working on is this one right here, and it's for my friend Elaine. And I can't see the screen right now. I hope you can see what I'm aiming at. Yep, there it is. I'm looking way over now. This is the next machine I'm going to be preparing for Elaine, who actually requested 2 machines from me. This incredible Centennial Model 201-2, the Rolls-Royce of Singer sewing machines. Does anyone want to guess the other machine that she ordered? She approached me privately and she said, Scott, do you have or can you acquire this other machine that is my dream machine? And this is going to be my living legacy to give to my granddaughters. I'm going to give these machines to my granddaughters, and they're going to be able to enjoy them long after I'm gone. One of them is this Centennial 201-2. Look at the badge mark. That's why it's a Centennial. And I haven't done any work on this machine yet. Nothing significant. Plus, I still need to clear coat it too, like I did to Paula's 201-2. I've got to clear coat this Centennial machine. What's the other machine that Elaine ended up getting that's going to go to her granddaughters, along with this one that you're looking at right now on the screen? Yeah. All right. My arm's going to go to sleep if I stay over there. Go back to Debbie Brown's mighty PFAFF that we just saw do all the magic. Yeah. All the magic. Paul is so cute. She goes, what's a century between friends? What's a century between friends? So Paula and Emma are both in the neck of the woods, but a specific type of featherweight that was only made for 8 years and was made exclusively in Kilbowie, Scotland. And I did not promote the fact that I had this machine available. I might have mentioned it to Paula or to Emma. I might have mentioned it to one of my leaders that I had it. It was kind of back there, and eventually I would focus on it. And then all of a sudden, Elaine from Mississippi reached out and she said, Scott, I want to get some legacy pieces from your workshop for my granddaughters so they remember me long after I'm gone and we can enjoy them while I'm still here. And I want a 201-2. I want a Rolls Royce of Singer sewing machines. And do you by any chance, I know they're incredibly rare, in 8 years of production in Kibawe, Scotland, they only made about 100,000 of them worldwide distribution. Only 100,000 made. That's the size of some of Singer's production groups for some of their class machines. She said, do you have, you guys already know where I'm at. You already know. Do you have a 222K, Scott? Do you? Do you? Do you? Do you? Yes, I do. I didn't plan that with the music. That was so perfect. So Elaine, the next two machines, and I'm going to be focusing on, first of all, the 201-2, and then moving into a 222K. I don't know if I'll be able to premiere them together. I don't know that I would want to premiere them together. But eventually you'll see those machines pop up for one of our Cow Country family members that's down in the great state of Missis. I can't spell it. Somebody spell Mississippi in the chat because I'm going to fail. I'm going to fail, and there's even a song. There's even a song for the word Mississippi. We sang it as kids. It's one of those words. How often do you spell Mississippi? We spell Mississippi about as often as we use algebra. Yeah, it's true. It's true. Thank you, Emma, for spelling it, because I would have just totally embarrassed myself. Yeah. All right, well, we're done with this live stream, you guys. Thank you so much for taking valuable time out of your Saturday so we could come together as a family to celebrate a true miracle, a miracle of a machine that arrived busted in pieces. You'll remember, and I'll post those pictures in the description for this live stream. You'll want to check out the description in the next couple of days. I'll have all the links there for the progress photos, and you'll see that some of the parts even arrived in prescription bottles. I assume the prescription bottles belong to either Debbie or her father. But we are finally at the finish line now. We can celebrate another machine going from the ashes, kind of the burnt, broken ashes, to an absolute victory during this live stream. So everybody enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thanks for being a part of our family. Thanks to all those that stepped out and joined the live chat. We got a chance to get to know you a little bit, to meet you, to welcome you. Those of you that are still sitting in the shadows, that's okay. But hopefully eventually you'll step out and join us. We would love that. And I know I speak for Emma and Paula and Sonny and Bill and Veronica. And also, who's our other one? Michelle. We just added Michelle as a moderator as well when we had our porno person trying to push their junk in our last live stream. So anyway, that's it. We're done. We're done. I should ring the bell again. Take care, everybody. God bless you. Oh, and welcome to Doris, too. Doras. Doris. And Doris spelled it for me, too. God bless you guys that can spell. I was never a spell master. Never, 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 never. Ha-ha! Music! Turn it up, baby! Take care, Mickey. I don't think I said hello to Mickey, but I just said hello and goodbye to Mickey at the same time. That's talent. Yeah. Ha-ha. See you next time. Take care.